A very good evening, friends. And today I'm coming up with a very interesting topic of social geography. And mainly, this topic is very much discussed in cultural geography. It is called the cultural diffusion. So, first, I have made my whole lecture into four sections, and the first section is about the culture. So, before starting this cultural diffusion, before understanding these things, you have to very clear idea about what do you mean by culture. Actually, culture means a learned behavior. It's a very abstract thing, uh, this is the only thing which make us different from other animals or other living creature on this world. But this culture can be divided into two sections, like material and non-material. When we are inside a society, we have a particular kind of dressing style. We always follow a particular type of food practice. We use different kinds of ornaments. So this all come to the material culture, means the cultural um products which you can see, which you can understand, which is visible. Okay, next come to the non-material culture. So non-material cultural component means the norms, beliefs and practice. But very interestingly, these two are not totally segregated sector. Rather, I can say that the second one is very much influential to determine that what kind of material components a particular society will adopt. So that reason we have divided these two things into two sections, material culture and non-material culture. So when it's come to the diffusion, this what means it must be diffused. And when it's come to the diffusion, we generally understand this two, this concept regarding material cultural components and also non-material cultural components. Then the question is come, then how this diffusion can be taken place. So I'll put up some kind of pictures here, and from here you can understand. Suppose this is a society A and this is a society B. So the culture, both material and non-material cultural components can be diffused from here to this place. But it's not always taken place horizontally. Sometimes like a vertical structure can be found. Suppose this is A, and within A there is a subsection. Like in a society we may have seen some class discrimination, some caste discrimination. So suppose there is a society, so a kind of culture practice has been seen in the higher caste, suddenly it has been diffused into the lower caste also. But I want to explain you, sometimes this can be done into this section also. But in case of caste and class, there is a tendency that all time we see the trickle down, not the trickle on the bubble up. Okay, so another kind of diffusion can be taken place. Suppose this is a society A, and a culture practice can be diffused into different other societies. So it can be horizontal, it can be linear, it can be centrifugal and sometimes centripetal also. Suppose this is a society, and lots of characteristics can be diffused in this particular one. So when I'm talking about this, I can think the Indian society can be the best example for this. Like in Indian society, we have different kinds of food practice. We all taken Mughlai food, like Mughal foods. We also taken some foods of British and also some Portuguese food also. So all the characteristics is diffused in this particular society. Now the questions come, sometimes some a kind of features, a kind of characteristics is diffused into different area. So when I have to put an example for this, I will say in the colonial period, suppose I'm taking the example of Britain. The British colonials, wherever they have visited or which area they have conquered for that time, they have diffused their own culture practice there, like cash crops. Cash crops is a kind of agriculture practice which is not seen even before the colonial period. So when this colonial people actually actually reached different parts of the world which has been colonized by them, they actually introduced this kind of the practice of the agriculture, because agriculture is also a practice, so it's also connected with the culture. Next, when I'm talking about this section, I will take a very recent example of our society, like the use of mobile phone. There was a time when the mobile phone is very much common in the higher class, when it just invented like in 90s. Okay, so after that, suddenly nowadays we have found that all the people of the section using the mobile phone, and mainly the Android and some kind of highly technology induced mobile phone. So this can can be a concept, and that I am talking about the reverse also. So I putting an example. Suppose nowadays we have all used some kind of junk jewelries. Actually, I'm dealing with gender, so I am giving example for from women's culture also. So women, actually, whatever we are doing, we are wearing different kinds of anklets and earrings and necklace, which is very much looking similar to the tribal ornaments. So this is a kind of totally reversal of the cultural diffusion process, and then one society to another. So this is a very common one. Sometimes it's not always possible that if you go to any kind of transitional zone, suppose if you go in a zone of Medinpur and Odisha, there is a boundary, there's a common boundary. So in the common boundary, you have seen this such practices are there, which has been practiced both by the Medinpur people and also by the Odisha people. So this is a kind of one-to-one society cultural diffusion procedure. Now I come to the next one, because when you are talking about the cultural diffusion, you are talking about the what I can say, you are talking about the diffusion of different material and non-material cultural components. So it can be sometimes the diffusion of the person also, it can be the diffusion of the beliefs, it can be the diffusion of the commodities. So there are few factors which actually affected that how for this cultural diffusion can be possible. So first one is with the physical. So if I'm talking about the physical location of the origin and destination, it's very important. If there are so many tribal societies are there in this world, but their culture is not diffused in different parts of the world. Why? Because somehow they are in a condition which is not favorable for the transport and other things. So people may not reach to this place, and they may not come out from their origin. But and also to the destination. Suppose I want to diffuse my culture to a place, it must be accessible, otherwise it can't be diffused. So sometimes it has been stated that the places which are segregated from one to another by different physical barriers like mountains and kind of rivers and other things, this kind of it has been found that this two society has been developed in a totally different way, no cultural diffusion has been made. And then the rivers, this is a very, very important things. Suppose in earlier days people mainly use the water transport. So wherever the river system is very developed and river drainage system is very good for transport, we have seen that cultural diffusion is taking place more and more. Okay, next come to the some social and cultural factors. Social culture factors mean the skill of the people. Suppose I am giving you an example. Nowadays sorry, I don't want to hurt anyone's belief, but it's a true thing that we the highly skilled people or the modern people even say that the tribal people should know our technology and other things, but it can't be possible. Though I think the tribal people, they have a very rich traditional knowledge, but in spite of this, I'm just putting an example that we are trying to make them as skilled as us, but it's not possible because they don't know how to read and write in our way, they have their own way. So the skill of the people is very important, both for the learners and both for the person who teach it. I'm telling you some, because most of the time cultural diffusion take place due to the domination of a particular group of people. Okay, so this is in the learning and teaching is come. The second one, the acceptance. Suppose you are trying to in so many rural areas, people are not at all comfortable with the modern technologies and modern dressing styles and other things. So it's not very easy that you go to this place and say that okay, fast, okay, you take my style of dressing for the very first day, because they have the access. If any one of them have a kind of tendency that she has a kind of likings to your dressing style, so it may be possible that for the very first day she will start to follow you. But it depends on the acceptance level, because if you are not acceptable to the people, then it's very difficult to diffuse your culture on them. Then the relationship between the groups, it has been found that if a culture is diffused in a particular area, so definitely some people of the destination place, they have a kind of likings for the cultural components, otherwise people may not take it. Okay, so these are the factors which is very much important, but most of the time cultural diffusion is taking place due to some effect of the mass media at present day, And on if I'm talking about the past days, it's all about the colonization. This is a very important aspect of cultural diffusion. Wherever the colonization has been taken place, or wherever the people have conquered others area, they have imposed, and somehow this is a reason that cultural diffusion is taken place. But anyway, next come to the factors, the type of the cultural diffusion. So first I'm giving an example, cultural practice. This is suppose O. So sometimes it is the origin of O, and it has been diffused to this particular area. This is the destination. So this can be one kind of expansion diffusion, I can say, because it's expanded. It is still in first origin, and we also find it in the destination. But there is some another case also. It may be diffused from this place to that place, but in the first place it was now absent. I'll give you example. Like in the earlier days, we have in so many families, in the rich families, they have a huge type of almiras, and huge type of very I can say huge type of almiras and other things. But now they have taken up higher class people, they don't use this type of home appliances, or I can say the home appliances in their houses. But these almiras are still have been found in the lower class people, because it is the style of there now at present. And there is also another type of this called the relocations. You may not find these cultural components in first and original place. Now come to the second one. It is all about the if no this is the origin of this cultural component, so it has been diffused to the lower section. It is very common, I have already given you example, and sometimes can be in a reverse mood also. So this is called the cascade. It's taken up by step. First, suppose I'm giving you example. When the British came to India, they have introduced spoon, okay, when they are taking the foods. This practice has been found in the higher class people, who actually very close to them. Then it's come to the lower class, and nowadays everyone in our society, they have a kind of practice. And in the second one is about I'm talking already given example of the tribal ornaments, which is very famous in now the high class society. So in this way the cultural diffusion has been taken place. So being a student of geography, whenever we are talking about any agricultural practice or kind of trade trade practice, or mainly the agriculture practice, has a very interesting kind of examples where the cultural diffusion has been taken place. Okay, and cultural diffusion is an interesting way, and the model has been put up by the Haggestand. So it is called the Haggestand model of cultural diffusions. I think I have made you a very brief idea about cultural diffusion, and hope that this lesson will help you for understanding this. Thank you very much.